The housekeeper cried. "They kicked us out, daughter. We don't have Christmas." The millionaire heard everything. Subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The fine drizzle of December fell over Los Angeles like a grey veil, turning the streets of Beverly Hills into mirrors, reflecting the yellowed lights of the street lamps. It was 7 in the morning when Vincent Walker crossed the electronic gate of his mansion, heading towards the black Mercedes-Benz parked in the garage. The 42-year-old businessman had a meticulous routine: coffee at 6:15, shower at 6:40, and leaving home exactly at 7. Nothing could alter this sequence that kept him in absolute control of his life. Vincent was of medium height, with broad shoulders shaped by years of swimming, grey hair at the temples giving him distinction, and brown eyes that seemed to calculate every movement around him. He always wore tailored suits, discreet ties, and impeccably polished Italian shoes. His upright posture and precise movements revealed someone used to commanding, but they also carried the rigidity of someone who had learned not to trust easily. The main gate of the property was closing automatically when something unusual caught his attention. Outside, on the wet sidewalk, a woman was kneeling on the ground, hugging a small child. Both were soaked by the persistent drizzle, and 2 cheap fabric suitcases lay open beside them, with clothes scattered on the damp asphalt. Vincent immediately recognized the woman. It was Patricia Smith, his housekeeper for almost 2 years, a 35-year-old Brazilian, light brown-skinned, with curly hair always tied in a simple bun, and expressive green eyes that contrasted with her sun-kissed skin. Patricia stood at 5'3", with a slender body strengthened by manual labor and calloused hands that told the story of a life of struggle. Even in difficult situations, she maintained a dignified posture, her chin always held high, as if challenging the world to try to break her. The girl beside her was clearly her daughter, Sophia, 6 years old, a small child with big green eyes inherited from her mother and honey-colored curly hair that fell over her thin shoulders. She wore a faded navy blue school uniform and worn black shoes. Even wet and scared, the child maintained a curious and intelligent expression that drew attention. "Mom, where are we going to sleep tonight?" asked Sophia, her thin voice cutting through the sound of the rain. "And Christmas? You said Santa Claus would find me at home." Patricia hugged her daughter tighter, trying to hide the tears that mixed with the raindrops on her face. "Everything will be all right, my love. Mommy will find a place for us to stay. Santa Claus always finds good children, no matter where they are." "But I don't want you to cry," said Sophia, wiping her mother's face with her small hands. "You said strong women don't cry." "Sometimes even strong women need to cry a little," Patricia replied, forcing a smile. "But then they dry their tears and keep fighting." Vincent remained still inside the car, watching the scene through the foggy windshield. Something inside him stirred, a strange sensation he hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if a cold hand tightened around his stomach. He recognized that feeling. It was the same one he had felt at 8 years old when his mother died and he became an orphan, relying on the kindness of his maternal grandmother. Grandma Mary had been a simple woman who lived in a humble house in a working-class neighborhood. She worked as a seamstress and raised chickens in the backyard to supplement her income. It was she who taught him that real people don't let anyone go hungry when they can help. But life had shown Vincent that this philosophy was dangerous. At 18, when he inherited a small amount from his mother's life insurance, he trusted a partner who promised to multiply his money. The man disappeared with everything, leaving Vincent in misery. "Never again," he had sworn to himself back then. "I will never trust anyone blindly again." This distrust had protected him during the building of his business empire. Walker Construction was now one of the largest construction companies in Los Angeles, specializing in luxury developments. Vincent owned apartments in 3 upscale neighborhoods, a ranch in Aspen, and investments that ensured the livelihood of 3 generations. But he also had an empty life, surrounded by employees who respected him out of fear and relatives who sought him only for their own interests. The sound of a horn behind him brought him back to reality. A taxi had stopped, and the driver, a thin man in his 50s with a worn cap, got out of the vehicle. "Ma'am, you can't stay. Here in the rain with the child," said the taxi driver, approaching Patricia. "You'll catch pneumonia. Is there somewhere you can go?" Patricia stood up, carrying Sophia in her arms. I'm trying to figure it out. Thank you for your concern." "Look, I have a daughter the same age as this girl," the driver continued, pulling a $20 bill from his pocket. "It's not much, but it will get you both a hot coffee somewhere and keep you dry for a while." "I can't accept," said Patricia, stepping back. "You don't know me." "I don't need to know you. I see a mother caring for her daughter in the rain. That's enough." Sophia looked at the bill in the man's hand, then at her mother's face. "Mom, I'm cold, and I'm hungry too." Patricia closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and extended her hand. "Thank you. As soon as I get a job, I'll pay you back." "You don't need to pay anything back. Just take good care of that girl." Vincent watched everything through the rearview mirror, feeling a growing tightness in his chest. He had known Patricia for 2 years. He knew she always arrived punctually at 7 in the morning, cleaned the house with meticulous care, and never broke anything. He never touched her personal belongings. He also knew that she was a single mother living in East Los Angeles, a nearly 2-hour public transport ride to Beverly Hills, and that she worked in 3 other houses during the week to supplement her income. What he didn't know was why they were on the street, with their belongings spread out on the wet sidewalk. The taxi driver helped Patricia load the bags into the trunk of the car. Sophia shyly waved at him before getting into the back seat. As the taxi pulled away, Vincent stood still, watching the raindrops slide down the windshield. His rational mind quickly took over. "Not my problem," he murmured to himself. "She's an employee, not family. Everyone has to solve their own problems." But the image of Sophia asking about Christmas kept echoing in his head. Vincent activated the car's GPS and headed to the office, located in the Olympic Village. During the 40-minute drive through the heavy traffic of Los Angeles, he tried to focus on the day's agenda: a meeting with investors at 9, proposal analysis at 10:30, and lunch with the board at noon. Routine, control, predictability. But his hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, and he couldn't shake off Sophia's voice. "Mom, where are we going to sleep tonight?" At 8:15, already in his office on the 30th floor of a commercial building, Vincent called Grandma Carol, his housekeeper, and the only employee he fully trusted. She had worked for the family for 15 years, since before his marriage to Renata, and knew all his habits. "Grandma Carol, did Patricia not come to work today?" "No, Mr. Vincent. It's strange. She always calls when she can't come. I tried her phone, but it's out of service." Vincent hesitated for a moment. "If she calls, tell her I need to speak with her. It's urgent." But the phone didn't ring, and as the hours passed, the image of Patricia and Sophia in the rain became a constant presence in his mind, interfering with his concentration during meetings and causing him to review the same documents multiple times. At 6 in the evening, when he finally returned to the mansion, Vincent found the house impeccably clean, thanks to Grandma Carol, but strangely empty. Something was missing that he couldn't identify. Perhaps it was the subtle sound Patricia made while dusting the furniture, or the faint scent of the cleaning product she used in the master bathroom. Sitting in his leather armchair in the library, with a glass of Scotch whiskey in hand, Vincent looked out the window at the street where he had found Patricia that morning. The rain had stopped, but the asphalt still shone under the streetlights. And for the first time in many years, the man who controlled an empire worth millions felt completely powerless in the face of a simple question. Where would two people he knew sleep that night? 3 days passed without news from Patricia. Vincent tried to maintain his usual routine, but found himself constantly distracted, looking out the office window toward the street as if he expected to see her appear at any moment. Grandma Carol had temporarily taken over cleaning duties, but the house felt different. Less detailed, less careful in the little touches that only Patricia knew how to provide. On Friday morning, while having coffee in the gourmet kitchen of his mansion, Vincent received an unexpected call. The number was unknown, but something compelled him to answer. "Hello? Mr. Vincent?" The voice was hesitant, almost a whisper. "This is Patricia." The businessman felt his heart race. "Patricia, where are you? What happened?" Silence on the other end, interrupted only by the sounds of traffic in the background. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "Sir, I wanted to apologize for missing work without notice. I know it wasn't professional of me." Pause. "I also wanted to let you know that I won't be able to work for you anymore." "What do you mean? Why?" "It's just that some things happened and I have to move to the countryside. My sister lives in Bakersfield and said I could stay at her house until I get organized." Vincent frowned. Something in Patricia's voice didn't sound right. There was a forced tension, as if she were reciting a rehearsed script. "Patricia, where are you right now?" I'm at a bus station." "Which bus station?" A prolonged silence. In the background, Vincent could clearly hear the sound of cars passing by, not the typical boarding announcements of a bus station. "Patricia, you're lying to me!" The call was disconnected. Vincent stared at his phone for a few seconds, then immediately called back. The phone was off. He tried 3 more times with the same result. At that moment, Grandma Carol entered the kitchen carrying a basket of clean laundry. Carol Rodriguez was 60 years old, with graying hair always neatly tied in a bun, and the dignified posture of someone who had raised 5 children working in households. Her brown eyes were perceptive, and she had a knack for reading people as if they were open books. "Mr. Vincent, may I ask you a question?" "Of course, Grandma Carol." "What do you intend to do about Patricia?" Vincent looked at her surprised. "What do you mean?" "Sir, I've worked here for 15 years. I know you better than many people in your family." Grandma Carol stepped closer, crossing her arms over her chest. "I saw how you've been these 3 days. I noticed that you can't concentrate, that you look out the window waiting for her to show up, and now you get this strange call and look like you want to run after someone." Vincent sighed, running his hands through his hair. "It's complicated, Grandma Carol." "What's complicated? Liking someone, wanting to help." "It's not a matter of liking. It's just that—" He hesitated. "You don't understand. I have responsibilities." Vincent stared at Carol, his housekeeper, who had just confronted him. "Mr. Vincent, with all due respect, this is nonsense. You're not worried about reputation. You're scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of truly caring about someone. Scared of trusting. Scared of discovering that money doesn't solve everything." Carol stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Sir, I've seen Patricia work here for 2 years. I've watched how she takes care of this house as if it were her own. I've seen how she talks about her daughter with love and pride. And I've also seen how you've changed in the last few months. I haven't changed at all." "Yes, you have. Before, you passed through this kitchen like a ghost. Now you always find an excuse to come here when she's working. You ask if she wants water, if everything's okay, if she needs anything. You've never done that with any employee." Vincent abruptly stood up and walked to the window overlooking the garden. Outside, gardeners tended to the immaculate lawns, and a maintenance crew cleaned the heated pool. Everything was running perfectly, like a well-oiled machine. "Carol, I built all of this from nothing," he said, not turning around. "After my grandmother's death, I was alone. I learned the hard way that you can't trust just anyone. If I start getting emotionally involved with employees, where will that lead?" "Mr. Vincent, can I tell you a story?" He turned to see Carol sitting on one of the stools at the central island. "When you married Mrs. Renata, I thought, finally, he will be happy. She was beautiful, intelligent, from a good family. She seemed like the perfect woman for you." Vincent grimaced. The divorce from Renata was still a painful subject, even after 3 years. "But you know what I noticed? During the 5 years you were married, I never saw you look at her the way you look at Patricia." "How do I look at her?" "Like she's a real person, not just a pretty accessory." Carol stood up. "With Mrs. Renata, you were polite, respectful, proper. But I never saw you smile genuinely around her. With Patricia." "What about Patricia?" "You smile, Mr. Vincent. You smile for real. Like when she makes that coffee you love, or when she tells a funny story about Sophia. You come alive when she's around." Vincent felt his stomach tighten. Carol's words echoed truths he had tried hard to ignore. In recent months, he had started to look forward to the days Patricia worked in the house. He made excuses to walk through the kitchen when she was preparing lunch. He had even bought those cheese puffs she mentioned liking, pretending they were for himself. "That doesn't matter now," he finally said. "She's gone." Gone, or was she forced out? The question hit him like a punch. "What do you mean?" "Sir, Patricia would never say she was going to the countryside without saying goodbye properly. That girl has manners. She has principles. And another thing, she once told me she has no relatives in Bakersfield. Her sister lives in Osasco." Vincent felt a wave of indignation rise within him. "Do you think she lied in the call?" "I think she was lying to protect someone, or to protect you." "Protect from what?" Carol hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Mr. Vincent, there are some things I've never told you because it wasn't my place, but I think I need to speak now." "What things?" "In recent months, Beth has been coming here more often, always when you're not around, and she always asks strange questions about Patricia." Beth was Vincent's younger sister, 5 years younger, known for her complicated personality. Since their parents' death, she had been financially dependent on her brother, receiving a generous allowance that supported her luxurious lifestyle in the Upper East Side. She was a beautiful woman, but bitter, never able to maintain a lasting relationship or a stable career. "What kind of questions?" "She asked how long Patricia was here, if she handled your documents, if she talked a lot with you. Once she even insinuated that she found it strange for a housekeeper to have access to the whole house." "Beth said that?" "And more, sir. Last week she showed up here with a friend, that socialite Fiona, and they were talking about how you were changed, that some woman was negatively influencing you." Vincent felt his anger rise like bile in his throat. Beth had always been possessive of him, but he never imagined she would interfere in his life like this. "Carol, do you think Beth did something to harm Patricia?" "I don't know, sir, but I know that people with too much free time and little purpose in life sometimes do foolish things." Vincent's phone rang. It was a familiar number. Roberto, his private driver. "Roberto? Mr. Vincent? Sorry to bother you, but you said to call if I saw Patricia around." Vincent's heart raced. "Did you see her?" "Yes, sir. She's at Central Park, in the city centre. She's sleeping on a bench with the girl, near the cathedral. It looks like they've been on the street for a few days." Vincent looked at Carol, who had listened to the entire conversation. The housekeeper's eyes sparkled, with contained tears. "Roberto, don't leave them. I'm on my way there now." Vincent hung up the phone and quickly headed for the garage. Carol followed him. "Mr. Vincent, What are you going to do? He paused at the door, the car keys already in hand. For the first time in many years, Vincent Walker didn't have a detailed plan, a calculated strategy, or an expectation of results. I'm going to make things right. What would my grandma do? He said, hurrying out. I'll bring them home. The traffic in downtown Los Angeles was chaotic that Friday evening. Vincent drove with tense hands on the wheel, dodging buses, motorcycles, and street vendors that spread across the crowded streets. The smell of exhaust and street food wafted through the air-conditioning vents, reminding him of a Los Angeles he had left behind long ago. Central Park was buzzing with activity. Workers headed to subway stations, homeless people occupied benches, evangelicals preached with megaphones, and tourists snapped photos of the Gothic cathedral. Vincent parked illegally on Wright Street, turning on the hazard lights, and began searching for Roberto. It didn't take long to find him. His driver, a confident black man, in his 40s, was standing about 20 feet away, pretending to read a newspaper while discreetly watching a bench near the cathedral's stairs. Vincent approached and finally saw them. Patricia was sitting at the end of a concrete bench, with Sophia lying beside her, her head resting on her mother's lap. They both wore the same clothes from 3 days ago, now dirty and wrinkled. Patricia had messy hair escaping from her bun, deep circles under her eyes, and a constant expression of vigilance, her eyes nervously scanning every person who passed too close. Sophia was sound asleep, clutching a rag doll that Vincent had never seen before. The child looked smaller, more fragile than he remembered. Her once rosy cheeks were pale, and her lips were chapped. "How long have they been like this?" Vincent asked Roberto. "I got here at 2 in the afternoon, sir. They were already on the bench. I discreetly asked the popcorn vendor on the corner. He said they showed up the day before yesterday and haven't left since." 2 nights on the street. Looks like it. The girl only leaves the bench to take the child to the station's restroom or to buy something simple at the bakery. She always comes back running, as if she's afraid of losing her spot. Vincent watched the scene for a few minutes, trying to understand how 2 people he had known for so long had ended up in that situation. Patricia suddenly lifted her head, and their eyes met. The expression that crossed her face was pure terror. She shook her head frantically, gesturing for him to stay away, then gently nudged Sophia. "Sophia, wake up, my love. You need to wake up." The girl opened her eyes, slowly, disoriented. "Mom, is it time to go somewhere else?" "Yes, sweetheart, let's go." Patricia quickly stood up, grabbing a plastic bag containing her few belongings, but Vincent was already walking toward them, and there was no way to escape without causing a scene. "Patricia, wait!" She stopped, hugging Sophia protectively against her body. "Mr. Vincent, please, you shouldn't be here." "Why not?" He stepped closer, noticing how Sophia was looking at him curiously, but without fear. "Why did you lie to me on the phone?" "I didn't lie. I really am going to the countryside. Patricia, your sister lives in Pasadena, not in Bakersfield." She lowered her eyes, defeated. Sophia tugged at the hem of her shirt. "Mom, who is this man?" He's my boss, Sophia." "What are you doing here?" Vincent asked, crouching down to be at the child's level. Sophia looked at her mother, then at him. "We're living here now. Mum said it's temporary until we get a new house." "Sophia," Patricia tried to interrupt her. "But I don't like it here. It's too noisy at night, and there are men who say bad words. And I'm really hungry too." Vincent felt a tightness in his chest. "How long have you not eaten?" "We ate this morning," Patricia quickly replied. "No, Mom, yesterday morning," Sophia corrected innocently. Patricia closed her eyes, mortified. "Sophia!" Vincent stood up, facing Patricia's gaze. "You need to explain to me what happened. Now." "Mr. Vincent, I can't what? Trust me, accept help, or are you protecting someone?" Patricia hesitated, nervously looking around. This isn't where we can talk. Then let's go somewhere else. I can't. If someone sees me with you... Patricia, for God's sake, you've been on the street for 3 days with a 6-year-old. What could be worse than this? Sophia began to cry softly, frightened by the altered tone of the conversation. Patricia immediately picked her up. It's okay, my love. The adults are just talking. Mom, can I have something to eat? My stomach hurts from hunger. The child's simple question broke any resistance Patricia still had. Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, defeated. Okay, let's talk. Vincent signaled to Roberto, who approached. Roberto, take them to that bakery on the corner. Ask Sophia to eat whatever she wants. I'll be there soon. Yes, sir. Patricia hesitated. Mr. Vincent, trust Roberto. He's a father of 3 and a grandfather of 2. He won't let anything happen to you. Roberto smiled kindly at Sophia. Come on, little one. Let's see if they have sweet bread there. Do you like sweet bread? I do. Sophia perked up for the first time. And hot chocolate too. Then let's see if they have hot chocolate. As Roberto took Sophia to the bakery, the child chattering excitedly about foods she missed, Vincent and Patricia were left alone in the park. Now tell me the truth, he said. Patricia sighed deeply, as if she were carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Mr. Vincent, some people from your family came looking for me. Which people? Your sister, Beth, and your ex-wife, Renata. Vincent felt anger rising within him like a flame. What did they do? They showed up at my shack in East Los Angeles on Monday. They said they knew I was taking advantage of you, trying to get close to gain benefits. What kind of benefits? Money, gifts, inheritance. Patricia laughed bitterly. As if I had the means to think about that. I just wanted to work in peace and support my daughter. What else did they say? They offered me money to leave Los Angeles and never show up in your life again. $5,000. Vincent was shocked. And you accepted? Of course not! Patricia glared at him indignantly. I said I wasn't doing anything wrong, that I was just your employee, and that they had no right to interfere in my life. And then... Patricia lowered her voice, looking around to make sure no one was listening. The next day, the owner of the shack where I lived showed up saying she had received an offer to sell the land. She said I had to leave immediately because the new owners wanted to demolish everything. Did they buy the land? Not directly, but the owner said it was a company, and they paid in cash, way above market value. Mr. Vincent, that land had been for sale for 3 years and no one ever showed interest. Vincent ran his hands through his hair, trying to control the growing fury inside him. Is that why you called me saying you were going to the countryside? They told me that if I continued working for you, or if I told anyone what happened, they would find a way to harm me even more. They said they know people in the police who could make up that I stole something. Did they threaten you? Not directly, but the message was clear. Patricia wiped a tear that was rolling down her face. Mr. Vincent, I don't have money to fight against rich people. I don't have a lawyer. I don't have influence. If they want to destroy me, they can. Vincent looked towards the bakery, where he could see Sophia sitting at a small table, eating a sandwich, while Roberto talked to her. The child seemed to have regained some of her liveliness. Why didn't you go to Pasadena, to your sister's house? My sister lives in a studio apartment with her husband and 2 small children. There's no space for anyone else. And besides... She hesitated. Besides what? I don't want Sophia to grow up thinking that life is like this, running from one place to another, depending on the kindness of others, without having anything that is ours. Patricia lifted her chin, showing the same dignity that Vincent had always admired in her. I prefer her to see that her mother fights, that she doesn't give up, that she faces difficulties head-on. Patricia, sleeping on the street is not facing difficulties. It's putting yourself in unnecessary danger. And what do you suggest I do? Accept their money and disappear from your life? Go to the countryside without a dime, without a job, without prospects?" Vincent was silent for a moment, watching the activity in the park. Evangelists continued preaching, homeless people vied for space on the benches, and life went on in its chaotic and indifferent course. "There's a third option," he finally said. "What? Come work in my house, not as a housekeeper, as a governess, with a decent salary, a signed contract, health insurance for you and for Sophia." Patricia looked at him as if he had gone mad. "Mr. Vincent, you don't understand. If I accept this, they won't do anything, because this time I will be by your side. You don't know your family like I do now. No, Patricia, you don't know what I'm capable of when someone messes with people I care about." The words came out before he could think them through. Patricia stared at him, surprised, and he realized what he had just confessed. "People you care about," Vincent sighed. "Patricia, in the last 2 years you have been the only person who entered my house wanting nothing more than to do your job well. The only one who treated me like a human being, not like a bank account. The only one—" He paused, searching for the right words. "The only one who made me remember what it's like to have a real family." She fell silent, absorbing his words. "And Sophia," he continued, "is the smartest and bravest child I've ever met. You both deserve better than this." Patricia looked at her daughter through the bakery window. Sophia had finished eating and was now drawing something on a napkin, while Roberto watched her with a paternal smile. "If I accept," she finally said, "they will make your life a living hell. Let me worry about that." "Are you sure?" Vincent thought of his grandmother, Grandma Mary, and the words she always repeated, "Real people don't let anyone go hungry when they can help." "I'm sure," he replied. "Let's go home." The mansion in Beverly Hills had never seemed so imposing in Vincent's eyes as it did at that moment when he crossed the electronic gates, with Patricia and Sophia in the back seat of the Mercedes. Throughout the journey from downtown to there, Sophia had been glued to the window, marveling at the skyscrapers, the tree-lined avenues, and finally the luxurious houses that multiplied as they approached the upscale neighborhood. "Mom, look at that big house," the girl exclaimed when the car stopped in front of the property. "It's a castle." Patricia held her daughter's hand tightly, her eyes nervously scanning the facade of the residence where she had worked for 2 years, but now saw from a completely different perspective. It was no longer just a workplace. It was, temporarily, her home. Grandma Carol was waiting for them at the main entrance, her hands clasped in front of her body, a warm smile lighting up her mature face. She had only known Sophia through the stories Patricia told, but embraced the child as if she were a beloved granddaughter finally arriving for a visit. "Visit? What a beautiful girl," said Carol, crouching down to Sophia's height. "Your mother always talks about you. She says you are very smart." Sophia hid behind Patricia's legs, still intimidated by the new environment, but curious enough to peek at Carol through her fingers. "She's just a little shy," Patricia explained. "Sophia, remember I told you about Grandma Carol? She works here and is very nice." "Do you have children?" Sophia asked, her voice low but interested. "I have 5 children and 2 grandchildren. One of them is almost your age," Carol replied patiently. "How about I show you the house while your mother talks to Mr. Vincent?" Vincent watched the interaction with a mix of tenderness and anxiety. He had made an impulsive decision, something completely out of character for him, and now needed to deal with the practical consequences. "Grandma Carol, you can stay in the maid's room on the ground floor," he said, "the one with its own bathroom and independent entrance." "Mr. Vincent," Patricia interrupted, "I don't want to be a burden. If there's a smaller room—" "That room is perfect. There's enough space for both of you, and Sophia can use the attached living room to play and study. Grandma Carol took Sophia by the hand. Come on, let's see your new room. I bet you'll love the window. It overlooks the garden where there's a jabuticaba tree. What's jabuticaba? Sophia asked, her curiosity overcoming her shyness. It's a sweet little fruit that grows right on the tree trunk. Very strange, but very tasty. When it's in season, we can make jelly. As Carol led Sophia to explore the premises, Vincent took Patricia to the library, a space that always calmed him with its mahogany shelves and leather armchairs. There, away from curious eyes, they could speak frankly. Patricia, I need you to understand a few things before this goes any further, he began, pouring her a glass of water. My sister Beth and my ex-wife Rachel will try everything to destabilize you. They are manipulative and don't consider the consequences when they want something. Patricia nodded, holding the glass with both hands to disguise her trembling. Mr. Vincent, I've already noticed that. But why do they care so much about me? I'm just an employee. Because they've realized something that I myself took a long time to admit. What? Vincent hesitated, walking to the window that overlooked the garden. Outside, he could see Sophia running after Carol, laughing for the first time since he had met her in the park. They've realized that you are important to me, and that scares them. Why? Because as long as I'm alone, they can manipulate me. Beth needs my money to maintain her lifestyle. Rachel still hopes that we'll get back together. But if I have someone by my side, someone who truly cares about me... Mr. Vincent, I don't understand where you're going with this. He turned to face her directly. Patricia, you've made me feel things I haven't felt in a long time. You've reminded me of what it's like to have a real home, not just an expensive property. When you're here, I'm not just the successful businessman or the brother who supports the family. I am myself. Patricia lowered her eyes, clearly uncomfortable with the intensity of the conversation. Mr. Vincent, I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about this. Why not? Because you are my boss. And I am a woman who was sleeping on the street 2 hours ago. It's not fair for you to get confused just because you're helping me. His response surprised him with its maturity and brutal honesty. Vincent realized that Patricia had an emotional wisdom that his wealth had never been able to buy. You're right, he admitted. But you also have the right to know that my intentions are genuine. I'm not offering you help out of pity or self-interest. I'm doing this because you two have become important to me. Before Patricia could respond, they heard raised voices coming from the entrance hall. Grandma Carol was speaking to someone in an agitated tone, which was rare for the always diplomatic housekeeper. I can't believe you have the nerve to show up here after what you did. Carol, have you forgotten who you're talking to? I am the sister of the owner of this house. Vincent sighed deeply. Beth has arrived. Patricia paled. What do I do? Stay here. Let me handle this. Vincent left the library and headed to the main hall, where he found a tense scene. Beth Walker stood at the door, elegant as always in her designer outfit, perfectly styled blonde hair, and impeccable makeup. At 37, she maintained the beauty she had inherited from her mother, but her blue eyes shone with a calculating coldness. Next to her was Rachel, his ex-wife, a 40-year-old woman, dark-haired, with fine features and an aristocratic bearing. Rachel came from a traditional family in Los Angeles and had never forgiven Vincent for filing for divorce, claiming he had become cold and obsessed with work. In truth, Vincent had discovered too late that she had married him more for social status than for love. "Vincent!" exclaimed Beth, extending her arms theatrically. "So good to see you. I came here because I was worried when I heard you were going through emotional difficulties." "What difficulties?" he asked, crossing his arms. "Oh, Vincent," Rachel interjected with her melodious voice. "You brought a stranger to live in our house. This is my house, Rachel, and it hasn't been ours for 3 years." "You know what I meant," she replied, pouting. "I'm worried about you. Since the divorce, you haven't been the same. You stay alone, don't go out, don't have fun. And now this. Of course, any smart woman will take advantage of your loneliness." At that moment, Sophia appeared running down the hallway, followed by Carol. The girl stopped abruptly upon seeing the visitors, instinctively sensing the tension in the air. "Mom," she called, looking for Patricia. Beth examined her from head to toe with barely concealed disdain. "So this is the child?" "Her name is Sophia," Vincent said coldly, "and she is welcome in this house." "How sweet," Rachel commented with false sweetness. "But Vincent, have you thought about the legal implications of having a family living here? And the risks? You don't even know this woman's past properly." Sophia approached Vincent timidly. "Uncle, where is my mom?" The affectionate nickname took everyone by surprise. Vincent felt his heart warm and crouched down to be at the girl's level. "Your mom is in the library talking to me. She'll be here soon." "Are these ladies your friends?" Sophia asked, looking curiously at Beth and Rachel. "They are people I know," Vincent replied diplomatically. Beth couldn't hide her irritation. "Vincent, we need to talk alone. Anything you have to say can be said in front of everyone. It's not appropriate in front of the child." "The child has a name," he repeated, standing up. "And if it's not appropriate in front of her, then it's not appropriate at all." Rachel tried a softer approach. "Vincent, my love, we're just worried. You're a good, generous man, and sometimes people take advantage of that. Remember what happened when you were young? That partner who ran off with your money." The mention of that traumatic episode from his youth felt like a slap in the face to Vincent. Rachel knew exactly where to strike to cause pain. "This is completely different," he replied, trying to stay calm. "Is it really?" Beth insisted. "A woman you barely know, with a child, shows up in your life just when you're lonely and vulnerable. She gets a job in your house, earns your trust, and now she's living here. Don't you see the pattern?" Sophia looked from one adult to another, clearly confused by the rising tension. Grandma Carol stepped forward and placed a protective hand on the girl's shoulder. "Sophia, how about we go to the kitchen and make a snack? I bet you're hungry." "Can I take a snack to my mom too?" "Of course you can." As Grandma Carol and Sophia moved away, Vincent faced his visitors firmly. "Listen well, you two. I will not tolerate you coming into my house, questioning my decisions, or scaring an innocent child." "An innocent child," Beth retorted. "Vincent, open your eyes. Do you think it's a coincidence she called you uncle on her very first day? These people know exactly how to manipulate your emotions." "Enough!" Vincent exploded. "You two made this woman and this child sleep on the street for 3 days. You bought the land where they live just to kick them out. What kind of people do that?" Beth and Rachel exchanged quick glances, realizing they had been discovered. "Vincent," Rachel tried to explain, "we just wanted to protect you." "Protect? You destroyed the lives of 2 innocent people to protect me?" "They weren't 2 innocent people," Beth shouted, losing her composure. "It was an opportunist and her daughter, and if you can't see that, it's because she's already completely charmed you." At that moment, Patricia appeared at the entrance of the library, clearly having overheard the discussion. Her face was pale, but her posture remained dignified. "Mr. Vincent," she said calmly, "perhaps it's best if I leave. I don't want to cause problems between you and your family." "No," he replied firmly. "The ones leaving are them." Beth was shocked. "Vincent, you're kicking your own sister out for a stranger." "I'm kicking out 2 people who invaded my home to threaten my guests." Rachel tried one last card. "Vincent, think carefully about what you're doing. If you keep this obsession up, you'll end up truly alone." No one from our social class will accept this arrangement. Vincent looked at Patricia, who held her head high despite the obvious humiliation, then at Beth and Rachel, with their faces twisted in anger and disdain. "So be it," he said, heading to the door and opening it. "Have a good afternoon." Beth stormed past him. "You will regret this, brother. And when you do, don't come looking for me." Rachel stopped in front of him, placing a hand on his arm. "Vincent, when you tire of this fantasy, I will be waiting, just as I always have." After they left, the house fell silent for a few moments. Vincent and Patricia stared at each other in the hall, both processing what had just happened. "Mr. Vincent," Patricia finally said, "thank you for defending me. But they are right about one thing." "What?" "This will complicate your life a lot," Vincent sighed, walking to one of the armchairs and sitting heavily. "Patricia, my life was already complicated. At least now it's complicated for something worthwhile." Before she could respond, Sophia came running down the hall, carrying a tray with sandwiches and juice. "Uncle Vincent, Grandma Carol taught me how to make cheese. Sandwiches. Want to try?" Vincent looked at the smiling child, then at Patricia, who watched her daughter with unconditional love, and realized that perhaps for the first time in many years he had made the right decision. "Of course, Sophia. Let's eat together." 3 weeks had passed since Patricia and Sophia moved into the mansion in Beverly Hills. The household routine had completely transformed. The once silent hallways now echoed with Sophia's laughter, and the smell of homemade coffee brewed by Patricia every morning had become the first sign that the day was beginning. Vincent observed these changes with a mix of surprise and contentment that he didn't know how to process. For years, his house had been just a place to sleep and store his belongings. Now, for the first time, he felt like he truly had a home. On a Thursday morning, while reviewing contracts in the library, Vincent heard voices coming from the garden. Through from the window, he saw Sophia sitting on the grass under the cherry tree, surrounded by papers and colored pencils, while Patricia Smith trimmed the roses in the nearby flower bed, a task she had voluntarily taken on, claiming the plants needed a feminine touch. "Mom, how do you spell architecture?" Sophia asked, nibbling the tip of her pencil. Vincent furrowed his brow. It was a strangely sophisticated word for a 6-year-old. "Architecture," Patricia replied without looking up from the flowers. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I want to write about Mom's profession in my family drawing. The teacher said we should draw everyone working." Patricia abruptly stopped trimming the roses. "Sophia, Mom's profession is housekeeper, remember? But you said the other day that you were an architect before I was born." "Not an architect, Sophia. And you shouldn't be talking about that." "Why?" Because people might not understand." Vincent continued to watch, intrigued. Patricia resumed cutting the roses with nervous movements, while Sophia stared at her with that questioning expression children make when they know adults are hiding something. "Mom, why don't you work as an architect anymore?" "Because things have changed, my love. Sometimes life takes us down different paths." "But did you like being an architect more or being a housekeeper?" Patricia sighed, finally turning to her daughter. "Sophia, Mom enjoys the work she does now. I like taking care of you, taking care of this house. That's what matters." Sophia didn't seem convinced, but she returned her attention to the drawing. Vincent, on the other hand, couldn't shake the word architecture from his mind. Patricia was an architect? Why didn't he know that? During lunch, prepared with the special care Patricia dedicated to everything she did, Vincent decided to bring up the subject indirectly. "Sophia, tell me about that drawing you were making in the garden." The girl perked up immediately. "It's a drawing of our family. I drew you in your office with lots of papers, Grandma Carol in the kitchen making delicious food, me at school learning math, and your mom?" Sophia hesitated, looking at Patricia, who was chewing slowly, clearly tense. I drew Mom, working in a beautiful house, with plants and a big garden. That's cool. And what is your mom doing in that house? She's taking care of things, Sophia replied diplomatically. After lunch, while Patricia was clearing the plates, Vincent followed her into the kitchen. Grandma Carol had gone shopping, so they were alone. Patricia, can I ask you a personal question? She stopped washing the dishes, but didn't turn around. Of course, Mr. Vincent. Did you study architecture? The plate she was holding slipped from her hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. Patricia quickly bent down to pick up the shards, but her hands were shaking. Let me get that, Vincent said, crouching beside her. Be careful not to cut yourself. When their eyes met, he saw tears she was struggling to hold back. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because it's not important, she murmured, standing up. How is it not important? Patricia, you have a higher education and are working as a housekeeper. That's not normal. Normal for whom, Mr. Vincent? For people like you who were born with opportunities? For me, work is work. I can't afford to choose. He stepped closer, gently touching her arm. This isn't about luxury. It's about you wasting your talent. My talent? She laughed bitterly. My talent doesn't pay bills, doesn't put food on the table, doesn't provide education for Sophia. But it could, if you had the right opportunity. Patricia looked at him with a mixed expression of irritation and desperation. Mr. Vincent, with all due respect, you don't understand how the world works for people like me. Then explain it to me. She sighed deeply, leaning against the waist sink. I graduated in architecture from the University of Southern California in 2010. I got a scholarship because I was always a good student. I dreamed of designing beautiful houses, buildings that would change the cityscape. And what happened? Life happened. I met Sophia's father in my last year of college. He was a civil engineer working for a large construction company. We fell in love. I got pregnant. We got married. Vincent listened in silence, realizing she had never talked about this with anyone. At first, everything seemed perfect. He had a stable job. I got an internship at an architecture firm. Sophia was born, and for a few months we lived like a normal family. And then he started drinking. He lost jobs, disappeared for days, spent our money on gambling. When Sophia turned 2, he disappeared for good. He left a letter saying he wasn't ready to be a father and husband. Vincent felt a wave of anger towards the man who had abandoned 2 such special people. And you were left alone with Sophia, with a small child and no money. The firm where I interned couldn't hire me. It was a small family business, and they needed someone who could travel, work nights, and be fully available. I couldn't. Didn't you try other places? I did, Mr. Vincent. I tried for months. But architecture is a tough market, especially for women. And especially for single mothers without experience. Employers always find an excuse. Patricia walked to the window, watching Sophia play in the garden with a doll that Vincent had bought for her the week before. One day, when she was 3 years old, Sophia got sick. High fever, needed to go to the hospital. I had a job interview scheduled with a company that finally seemed interested in hiring me. I had to cancel to take her to the doctor. And you lost the opportunity. They said a single mother would be too unreliable for the type of responsibility they were offering. It was then that I understood I had to choose, to be a mother or to be an architect. I chose to be a mother. Vincent stepped closer to her, touching her shoulder. Patricia, you shouldn't have to. That's what it takes to make this choice. But I did. And I don't regret it. She turned to him, her eyes shining with determination. I started taking cleaning jobs. Then I got this housekeeper position. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, and it allows me to be present in Sophia's life. Do you miss it? Architecture? Patricia smiled sadly. Every day. When I see a beautiful building, I imagine how I would have designed it differently. When I walk into a well-planned home, I visualize all the possibilities the space offers. But I prefer to have my daughter proud of a mum who fights for her than to be a failed architect who can't support her own family. Vincent was silent, for a moment, processing everything he had heard. He looked out the window and saw Sophia drawing in her notebook, her tongue sticking out in concentration. "Patricia, can I make you a proposal?" "What kind of proposal?" she asked suspiciously. "Walker Construction is developing a new residential project, a community of sustainable homes aimed at middle-class families. We need someone who understands both the technical aspects and the real needs of families." "Mr. Vincent, you could work as a consultant for the project, part-time, so you can continue taking care of Sophia. Salary commensurate with your qualifications." Patricia stared at him as if he had lost his mind. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. You have the qualifications, you have life experience, and most importantly, you have the sensitivity that's often lacking in the architects we usually hire. They design to impress, not to be lived in. But I don't have real professional experience. There's something better than professional experience. You have life experience. You know what it's like to raise a daughter alone. You know the real needs of a working mom. You know how to optimize small spaces." Patricia shook her head. "I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because it feels like charity. Because you're offering this out of pity, not competence." Her response irritated Vincent. "Patricia, do you think I got to where I am by handing out jobs out of charity? Do you think I would risk my company's reputation for sentimentality? Then why are you doing this?" "Because I need someone competent, and because I finally found someone who can bring a different perspective to our projects." He paused. "And yes, also because I care about you. But that doesn't make the offer any less serious." Patricia continued to hesitate. "What if I can't do it? What if I fail?" "Then you fail, like anyone in any job, but at least you try." Through the window, they saw Sophia running toward the house, holding something in her hands. "Mom! Uncle Vincent! Come see! I found a different flower in the garden." Sophia burst into the kitchen like a whirlwind, holding a small orchid that had sprouted spontaneously near the wall. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Look how beautiful! Can I plant it in a pot and take care of it?" Patricia smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "Of course, my love. Let's find a nice pot for it." "Uncle Vincent, did you know that orchids are good parasites?" "What do you mean?" Vincent asked, intrigued. The teacher explained that they live on other plants, but they don't hurt them. They just take support, but they also give beauty. It's a fair trade. Vincent looked at Patricia, who understood her daughter's unintentional metaphor. A fair trade, support in exchange for beauty. "Sophia," Vincent said, crouching down to be at the girl's level. "What do you think about Mom going back to work as an architect?" Sophia's eyes lit up like stars. "She can? For real? If she wants to, she can." Sophia turned to her mom with an expression of pure happiness. "Mom, are you going to build houses again?" Patricia looked at her daughter, then at Vincent, and for the first time in years allowed herself to dream again. "Maybe, my love. Maybe I can." The office of Walker Construction occupied 2 entire floors of a modern commercial building in downtown. Patricia stood in front of the mirrored building, watching the movement of well-dressed executives entering and exiting through the revolving doors. Her hands were sweating inside the fabric gloves, a gift from Vincent to look more professional. And she checked her reflection in the window for the 5th time. She had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. Vincent had bought suitable clothes for her, 2 women's suits in neutral tones, dress shirts, low-heeled shoes, and a genuine leather portfolio. Patricia initially protested against the expenses, but he explained that it was a necessary professional investment. "Ready, Mum?" asked Sophia, who was holding her hand. Vincent had suggested bringing her daughter on the first day, so she could see the environment where her mum would work. "I think so," Patricia replied, taking a deep breath. "And you, are you excited to see Uncle Vincent's office?" "Very. He said there's a high view of the city. I want to see if I can spot our house from there." They entered the elevator with other professionals. Patricia noticed the curious glances they received. An elegant black woman accompanied by a child in a corporate environment drew attention. She tried to ignore the discreet whispers and maintain the posture Grandma Carol had taught her. "Chin up, shoulders back, and remember that you have as much right to be anywhere as anyone else." On the 23rd floor, the doors opened to reveal a sophisticated environment: marble floors, walls covered in fine wood, and a reception area where a young blonde woman with an impeccable appearance answered phones with a melodious voice. "Good morning, how can I assist you?" the receptionist asked, her eyes scanning Patricia from head to toe with a discreet but noticeable evaluation. "I'm Patricia Smith. I have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Vincent." "Ah, yes, the consultant." The term came out with a slight hesitation. "He's expecting you in the conference room. Please follow me." As they walked through the hallways, filled with ornamental plants and abstract paintings, Sophia whispered to her mum, "Why did that lady say consultant like she ate something sour?" Patricia smiled, discreetly. The insight of her daughter always surprised her. "Some people need time to get used to new things, my love." The conference room had a whole glass wall with a panoramic view of Los Angeles. Sophia ran to the window, amazed, while Patricia greeted the 3 men present: Vincent, who stood up smiling upon seeing her, and 2 others she did not know. "Patricia, I want to introduce you to Charles Anderson, our project director, and architect Edward Johnson, who is responsible for the technical aspects of the residential complex." Charles was a 50-year-old man with graying hair, an impeccable suit, and a firm handshake. Edward looked younger, perhaps 35, wearing modern frame glasses and a colourful tie that contrasted with the sober environment. "Nice to meet you," Charles said politely, but Patricia sensed a certain reserve in his voice. "Vincent told us about your experience." "What kind of experience?" Edward asked, clearly curious. "Patricia has a degree in architecture and has a unique perspective on residential projects aimed at families," Vincent explained. "I thought she could significantly contribute to the Hope Garden project." Edward frowned. "Hope Garden? I'm not familiar with that name." "It's the name I was thinking for the complex," Vincent said. "Patricia, how about you take a look at the preliminary plans and give us your opinion?" Patricia approached the table, where technical drawings, floor plans, and perspectives of the project were spread out. Her eyes quickly scanned the documents, and she felt a familiar emotion swell in her chest. It was like revisiting a language she hadn't spoken in years, but still mastered perfectly. "Can I ask a few questions about the target audience?" she asked. Charles consulted a folder. "Middle-class families, income between 5 to 10 minimum wages, school-aged children, young couples on the rise in their careers." Patricia studied the plans for a few minutes in silence, while Sophia discreetly played with a doll in the corner of the room. Finally, she lifted her eyes. "Have you considered working mothers?" "What do you mean?" Edward asked. "Well, these plans show beautiful kitchens, but they are completely isolated from the living room. A mother coming home from work at 7 in the evening won't be able to prepare dinner and supervise her children's homework at the same time." Charles and Edward exchanged glances. "Interesting perspective," Charles murmured. "And the children's rooms," Patricia continued, gaining confidence, are all the same size, but a middle-class family usually has children of different ages. A teenager needs more privacy and space to study than a 6-year-old. She's right, Edward admitted, taking notes. Vincent watched Patricia's transformation with admiration. The initial shyness had given way to a natural professional confidence. She spoke with technical knowledge, but also with a practical understanding that impressed both architects. Another thing, Patricia said, pointing to the laundry room. You place the laundry at the back of the house, far from the bedrooms. This means a mother will have to cross the entire house carrying laundry baskets. I never thought of that, Edward confessed. And the gourmet area, she continued. It's too exposed. Families with small children need a space where they can barbecue on the weekend without worrying about the kids running toward the pool. Charles leaned over the table. What kind of modifications would you suggest? Patricia picked up a pencil and began to sketch quick outlines on a blank sheet. Her hand moved confidently, tracing precise lines. Open concept between the kitchen and living room, but with a small peninsula that allows the mother to cook while interacting with the family. Bedrooms sized according to age. The master obviously larger, a medium room for teenagers, and smaller but functional rooms for children. As she drew, Sophia quietly approached, watching her mother work with shining eyes of pride. And the laundry? Edward asked. Central hallway. Quick access to all bedrooms, but discreet enough not to interfere with the aesthetics of the house. Vincent smiled, seeing how the two men were being won over by Patricia's competence. But mainly, he saw how she seemed to be reborn by using her professional knowledge again. Impressive, Charles murmured. How many years of experience do you have in residential projects? Patricia hesitated for a moment. Actually, this is my first real professional experience as an architect. What do you mean? Edward asked, surprised. I graduated 7 years ago, but I never managed to work in the field. Life circumstances led me down other paths. Charles frowned. So how did you develop this sensitivity to family needs? Patricia looked at Sophia, who was smiling encouragingly at her. Because I live these needs every day. I'm a single mother, I work outside, and I know exactly what the practical challenges of running a household are. That's refreshing, Edward admitted. We usually design thinking about aesthetic concepts or market trends. We rarely consider real functionality. The meeting extended for another 2 hours. Patricia presented ideas on child safety, storage space optimization, natural light utilization, and even suggestions on landscaping that encouraged neighborly interactions. When they finally left the office, Sophia could hardly contain her excitement. Mom, you were amazing. I saw how those men were impressed with you. You think so? Patricia asked, still processing the experience. I'm sure, Vincent replied, accompanying them to the elevator. Charles whispered to me that you have a vision he had never considered, and Edward is already eager to work with your ideas. In the descending elevator, Patricia finally relaxed. Mr. Vincent, I don't know how to thank you for this opportunity. You don't need to thank me. You earned your place with competence. Can I ask one thing? Of course. Why did you really do this? I know it wasn't just charity, but it also wasn't only for professional competence. There was a personal connection. Vincent looked at Sophia, who was playing with the elevator buttons, then back at Patricia. Because I saw in you something I recognized in myself. What? Wasted potential due to unfair circumstances. When she was young, I almost lost everything for trusting the wrong person. The difference is that I got a second chance. I thought it was fair to give you yours. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, but none of the three moved for a moment. What now? Asked Patricia. Now you go home, study the material that Charles gave you, and next week you officially start as a project consultant at Walker Construction. Sophia clapped her hands. Mom is really going to work as an architect. Patricia smiled, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her dreams were not lost forever. Yes, my love. Mom is really going to work as an architect. As they walked toward the car, Vincent observed mother and daughter animatedly discussing the future. He realized that by giving Patricia an opportunity, he might also be giving himself a new chance, a chance to build something real, something worthwhile. 2 months had passed since Patricia began working as a consultant at Walker Construction. The Hope Garden project was taking shape under her guidance, and she had become a key member of the team. Her practical suggestions had revolutionized the original concept, making the houses more functional and accessible for real families. That Saturday morning, Vincent decided to work from home, taking advantage of the weekend silence to review contracts for the new development. Sophia played in the garden, while Patricia organized the library, a task she had taken on after discovering that Vincent had several technical books on architecture and urban planning, scattered without any system. While handling a stack of old documents, Patricia found a yellowed folder with a worn elastic band hidden behind an encyclopedia. Curious, she opened it to check if it contained important papers that needed to be properly filed. Inside the folder were old photographs, birth certificates, handwritten letters, and newspaper clippings. The photos showed a young woman with delicate features, curly hair tied in simple buns, always smiling. In many of them, she appeared alongside another woman who looked very similar but wore more elegant clothing. Patricia examined the birth certificates with growing curiosity. One was for Mary Smith, born in 1935. The other was for Helen Smith, born in 1937, sisters. Her heart began to race when she read the surname Smith, the same surname as her family. But what really took her breath away was finding, among the documents, a marriage certificate for Helen Smith and Robert Walker in 1960. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hands trembling as she held the papers. She continued flipping through the documents and found letters exchanged between the two sisters. Conceição's neat handwriting described her humble life on the outskirts of Los Angeles, her work as a seamstress, and financial struggles. Helen's letters spoke of life in the affluent neighborhood, social commitments, but also a deep sadness over not being able to have children. A letter from 1970 particularly caught her attention. "Dear Mary, Robert and I finally managed to adopt a boy. His name is Vincent. He is only 2 years old, and he lost his parents in an accident. He is a beautiful child, but very scared. I wish you could meet him, but Robert prefers that we keep our distance from the family for now. He says it's better for the boy's social adaptation. I miss you so. Much, sister." Patricia continued reading, discovering that Helen had died when Vincent was 8 years old, and that he had then been raised by Mary, his maternal grandmother, but actually his great-aunt. More letters revealed that Mary had always questioned Helen's abandonment of her humble family, but understood the social pressures her sister faced. When Helen died, Mary did not hesitate to take Vincent in, raising him with all her love, but always keeping the true family origin of the boy a secret. "Patricia, are you okay?" Vincent's voice startled her. She quickly closed the folder, but it was too late. He had entered the library and seen her with the documents in hand. I was organizing the papers and found this folder. I didn't mean to meddle in personal matters, but—" Vincent approached, immediately recognizing what she was holding. His face paled. "Did you read it?" "Some parts. Mr. Vincent, I didn't know." He sat heavily in an armchair, running his hands through his hair. "No one knew. Mary never told the truth about our family." "Our family?" Patricia stepped closer, still holding the folder. Mr. Vincent, my grandmother's name was Rose Smith. She always said she had two sisters, who went to Los Angeles in the 50s but lost contact with them. Vincent stared at her, slowly processing the information. Rose Smith? Yes. Helen and Mary were your older sisters. That means we are cousins, he completed, his voice almost a whisper. Distant cousins, but yes. They fell silent for a few minutes, both trying to process the discovery. Patricia flipped through the documents again, finding a photo where three young women appeared together. Helen, Mary, and a third woman she immediately recognized by the family features. This is my grandmother Rose, she said, showing the photo. They were very close before Helen got married and changed her social life. That's why, Vincent murmured. That's why I always felt this inexplicable connection with you, as if we had known each other forever. And that's why Beth and Rachel were so uncomfortable. They sensed an intimacy that even we didn't understand. Vincent stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the garden where Sophia was happily playing with a doll. Patricia, this changes everything. How does it change? You're not just an employee I am helping. You are family. He hesitated, searching for the right words. It's the granddaughter of the sister of the woman who raised me as a son, he completed. Technically, we are related by affinity, not by blood. But we are family just the same. Patricia approached him at the window. Mr. Vincent, this doesn't have to change anything between us. We continue to be the same people. No, Patricia, everything changes. Because now I understand why I feel so protected when you are around. Why the house feels more like home with you here. Why Sophia calls me uncle as if it were natural. Because maybe it is natural, she said softly. At that moment, Sophia burst into the library, interrupting the tense moment. Uncle Vincent! Mom, come see! A butterfly was born in the garden. She pulled them both by the hand, dragging them outside. In the garden, near the roses that Patricia tended to so lovingly, a butterfly with yellow wings had just emerged from its cocoon, drying its wings in the morning sun. "Look how beautiful it is!" exclaimed Sophia, amazed. Grandma Carol said it was closed up in a tiny little house for a long time until it was ready to fly. Vincent looked at Patricia, who was watching. The butterfly with an emotional smile. The metaphor did not go unnoticed by either of them. "Sophia," Vincent said, crouching down to be at the girl's level, "how would you feel if I told you we discovered we are a real family?" "What do you mean?" she asked, curious. "Your great-grandmother and my grandmother were sisters. That makes me your distant cousin." Sophia processed the information for a few seconds, then her eyes lit up. "So I don't have to pretend you're my uncle anymore. You are really my uncle. Technically, I'm more like a second cousin, but uncle is easier to say," Sophia declared pragmatically. "And besides, you already take care of us like a real uncle." Patricia laughed, surprised at how naturally her daughter had received the news. To her, it's that simple. "Maybe it should be simple for us too," Vincent said. "Family is who we choose to love and protect, not just those who share our blood." The butterfly chose that moment to take its first flight, circling over their heads before disappearing over the property wall. It went to look for other butterflies, Sophia observed, to form a family. Vincent and Patricia exchanged glances, both thinking about the discovery they had just made and what it would mean for their future. "Patricia," Vincent finally said, "there's something else I need to tell you." "What?" "Grandma Carol knew. From the first day you started working here, she said there was something familiar about you. She said you had the same way of taking care of things that Mary had." "She never said anything." "Because she wanted us to discover it for ourselves. Carol is wise that way." Sophia had turned her attention to other discoveries in the garden, but her parents remained side by side, watching her play. "And now?" Patricia asked. "What do we do with this information?" "Now we understand that it wasn't a coincidence we found each other," Vincent replied, "and that no matter what Beth and Rachel try to do to separate us, they are fighting against something bigger than financial interest or jealousy. They are fighting against family." "Exactly. And family, Patricia, is the only thing worth fighting for." As the afternoon unfolded, with Sophia exploring every corner of the garden in search of more nature surprises, Vincent and Patricia continued to talk about their discoveries, about the grandmothers they never really knew, and about how fate had conspired to reunite two families that had been separated by social circumstances decades ago. And for the first time since they met, they both felt truly at home. 3 weeks after the discovery of their kinship, the peace that had settled in the mansion in Beverly Hills was brutally interrupted one Tuesday morning. Patricia was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Grandma Carol rushed in through the back door, her normally serene face marked by lines of worry. "Patricia, dear, I need to tell you something," Carol said, checking to see if Sophia was nearby. The girl was playing in the living room, so she continued in a low voice. "Last night, after you all went to bed, Beth showed up here. She was very agitated." "What did she want?" "She brought some papers. She said she had proof that you are deceiving Mr. Vincent, that you made up this family story to take advantage of him." Patricia dropped the spoon she was holding. "What do you mean?" "She hired a private investigator to look into your family. She said she has documents proving that you forged the birth certificates that were in the library." Patricia's world seemed to spin. "But that's absurd. I didn't even know those documents existed until I found them by chance." "I know, dear, but she was convinced that you planted those papers to create this family story." "Where is Mr. Vincent? Does he know about this?" Carol hesitated. "She asked to speak to him alone. They've been in the library since 7 this morning." Patricia immediately headed to the library, but stopped in front of the door upon hearing raised voices from inside. "I can't believe you could be so naive, Vincent," Beth was shouting. "She has manipulated you from day one. Beth, you're talking about lies fabricated by a detective you hired. Look at these documents. The dates don't match. The signatures are different. The stamps from the registries have authenticity issues. Where did you get this?" "Serious investigation, brother. Something you should have done before bringing this woman into our family." Patricia knocked on the door and entered without waiting for a response. Vincent was standing behind the table, several papers spread out in front of him, his face tense with anger. Beth turned to her with a triumphant smile. "Oh, how convenient! The star of the show arrived just in time for the finale." "Beth, enough!" Vincent interrupted. "No, brother. This time she will have to face me." Beth approached Patricia, holding a folder. "Your game is over, dear. I've uncovered everything about you." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't know?" Beth spread documents across the table. "Then explain to me how your grandmother Rose shows up with 3 different birth dates in different registries. How do her marriage certificates have glaring inconsistencies?" Patricia examined the papers with growing horror. Indeed, there were contradictory documents, mismatched information, records that seemed to have been altered. "I've never seen these documents in my life," she said, her voice trembling. "Of course not, because you forged everything perfectly before accidentally finding that folder in the library." "That's a lie." "Is it a lie?" Beth laughed coldly. "Then explain to me how you knew exactly where to look. How did you have access to my brother's private library to plant false evidence?" Vincent intervened. "Beth, Patricia has worked in this house for over 2 years. She has access to all areas." "Exactly, long enough to plan everything down to the smallest detail." "Mr. Vincent," Patricia said, her tears beginning to fall, "I swear I didn't do any of this. I didn't even know that folder existed." "Crocodile tears," Beth murmured. Very convincing. At that moment, Sophia appeared in the doorway of the library, still in her pajamas, obviously awakened by the shouting. "Mom, why is everyone yelling?" Beth looked at the child with disdain. "Because your mother is a liar, dear." "Beth!" Vincent exploded. Sophia ran to Patricia, who picked her up protectively. "Mom, what's happening?" "Nothing, my love. The adults are just discussing." "The child is also part of the plan," Beth continued relentlessly. "A single mother with a little girl evokes sympathy. Very clever." "Enough!" Vincent shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "You will not speak about Sophia like that." "Oh, are you defending the child of the con artist too?" The insult was the last straw. Patricia gently placed Sophia on the ground and turned to Beth with a fury that surprised everyone. "You can say whatever you want about me, but do not dare insult my daughter." "Or what? Are you going to sue me? With what lawyer? With what money?" "Beth, get out of my house, now," Vincent ordered. "Your house? Brother, did you forget that half of this property is mine by inheritance? Half of the company's shares are yours. This house is mine." "Legal details. The important thing is that now you know the truth about your little protégé." Patricia looked at the documents spread out on the table, her mind racing. Something didn't make sense. "Can I see those papers up close?" "For what? To create more lies?" Patricia ignored the comment and carefully examined the contradictory certificates. After a few minutes, she looked up with an expression of understanding. "Beth, you made a mistake." "What do you mean?" "These false certificates you had made, they are very well done, too professional to be the work of a manipulative housekeeper." Beth hesitated for a second, but quickly regained her composure. "You must have hired someone competent." "With what money? You said yourself that I don't have the resources to hire a lawyer." Vincent stepped closer, intrigued by Patricia's reasoning. "And there's another thing," she continued. "My grandma Rose died when I was 15. All these documents are dated after her death. How could she have signed papers after she was dead?" Beth's face began to turn red. You're trying to confuse things." "No, Beth. The one confusing things is you. You had documents forged to incriminate an innocent person." "That's absurd." Vincent picked up one of the documents and examined the date. "Patricia is right. This certificate is dated 2019. How could your grandmother have signed something 5 years after she died? It must be an error from the registry office. In all the documents? What an interesting coincidence." Beth realized she had been cornered by her own trap. She tried one last card. Even if these specific documents have issues, it doesn't change the fact that she made up this story of kinship to take advantage of you. "Actually, it changes everything," said a voice from the door. Everyone turned to see Grandma Carol enter the library, carrying an old shoebox. "Grandma Carol?" Vincent asked. "Mr. Vincent, after the confusion last night, I went to the attic to get some things that belonged to Grandma Mary, things she asked me to keep before she died." Carol opened the box, revealing more photographs, letters, and original documents. "These are the true certificates of the Smith family. Grandma Mary told me the whole story before she died. She always knew that one day someone from the family would show up and asked me to keep the proof." Beth paled. That doesn't prove anything." "It proves that Patricia has been telling the truth from day one," Carol said firmly. "And it proves that you forged documents to incriminate an innocent person." "You can't prove that." "Actually, I can," Vincent said, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police now. Document forgery is a crime." Beth realized she had completely lost. Her expression changed from arrogant to desperate. "Vincent, please, I'm your sister." "A sister wouldn't do this to family." "Family? This woman is not our family." "She's more family than you've ever been," he replied coldly. Patricia has brought peace, love, and joy to this house. You have only brought intrigue, lies, and suffering. Beth looked around, realizing she had no allies left in the room, not even Sophia, who was watching her with the natural curiosity of a child, but without the slightest fear or respect. You will regret this, she finally said, heading for the door. When you find out who this woman really is, when she shows her true intentions, remember that I warned you. Beth, Vincent called as she reached the door. What? Don't come back here and cancel your allowance. From now on, you will have to work to support yourself like any normal person. Beth's face twisted in hatred. You will pay for this, brother. One way or another, you will pay. She stormed out, slamming the door, leaving a tense silence in the library. Sophia was the first to speak. Uncle Vincent, that woman is really mean, isn't she? Vincent picked her up, hugging her tightly. Sometimes people do bad things when, Sophia, they are either scared or envious. But you don't need to worry. She won't bother you anymore. Good, Sophia said pragmatically, because I didn't like her at all. She spoke badly about my mom. Patricia approached, still shaken by the events of the morning. Mr. Vincent, Patricia, you don't need to explain yourself. I believe you. I've always believed in you. But what if she's right about something? What if I really am a problem in your life? Vincent set Sophia down and walked over to Patricia, holding her hands. Do you want to know what the difference is between you and Beth? Beth always wanted to take things from me. Money, attention, control. You only gave me things: joy, companionship, a real family. But your sister, Beth, made her choice. She chose hate over love, destruction over building. Now I've made my choice. What is it? Vincent looked at Sophia, who was playing with the old documents Grandma Carol had brought, then at Grandma Carol, who was quietly tidying up the mess left by the discussion, and finally at Patricia. I choose the family that chose me. I choose you. And in that moment, despite the storm that had passed through the house that morning, everyone knew that something had changed forever. The family they had built together had been tested and had endured. Beth might try to destroy them, but they had discovered something she would never understand. True love cannot be bought, sold, or destroyed by false documents. It can only grow stronger when challenged. 6 months had passed since the confrontation with Beth, and life in the mansion in Beverly Hills had found a new rhythm. Patricia had firmly established herself as a consultant for Walker Construction, where her innovative projects were starting to attract attention in the Los Angeles real estate market. Sophia, now 7 years old, attended a nearby private school and excelled particularly in math, a talent that even impressed her teachers. It was a hot March afternoon when the company phone rang with a call that would change everything again. Charles Anderson answered in the office and minutes later urgently called Vincent over. Vincent, you need to come here immediately. We have a serious problem. What kind of problem? I'd rather not discuss it over the phone, but it's about the Hope Garden project and about Patricia. Vincent felt his stomach tighten. After months of tranquility, any mention of problems involving Patricia put him on high alert. Arriving at the office, he found Charles and Edward in a state of agitation, surrounded by documents, architectural plans, and printouts scattered across the conference table. What happened? Vincent, Edward began, do you remember that we submitted the Hope Garden project for that national sustainable housing competition? Yes, of course, it was Patricia's idea to participate. Well, the results came out today. Charles stepped closer, holding an official letter. Vincent, you won. First place in the Innovation in Affordable Housing Projects category. Vincent blinked, confused. That's great, isn't it? Why do you all look like you're at a funeral? Because it's not just the award, Edward continued. The project has been selected for presentation at the International Congress of Sustainable Architecture in Washington, D.C. And there's more. Charles handed him another document. A German real estate investment company is interested in the concept. They want to buy the rights to the project and implement it in different countries. They're offering $15 million, Edward added. Vincent slowly sat down, processing the information. 15 million. And there's a condition, Charles said, hesitating. They want the architect responsible for the concept to go to Germany to oversee the implementation of the project. It would be 2 years, initially. 2 years in Germany. Vincent, do you understand what this means? Patricia would be recognized internationally. It would be the opportunity of her life, but it would also be the end of your life here, together. The three men fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Vincent stood up. Does she know yet? Not yet. We wanted to talk to you first. Why? Charles and Edward exchanged uncomfortable glances. Because we've known you for months. We see how you look at each other, how you care for one another. This goes beyond a professional or family relationship. And because, Edward added, Patricia would never accept an opportunity that meant leaving you, unless you encourage her to go. Vincent closed his eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility. You're asking me to let go of the most important person in my life for her sake? We're saying that if you truly love her, you need to do what's best for her, even if it hurts you. That night, Vincent returned home earlier than usual. He found Patricia in the garden helping. Sophia with her homework under the cherry tree. The scene was so perfect, so familiar, that he felt his heart break at the thought of losing her. "Uncle Vincent!" Sophia exclaimed, running to hug him. "Guess what? I got an A on my math test." "How proud," he said, lifting her up. "You're getting smarter than your uncle." "The teacher said I have a special talent for numbers, just like Mom when she designs houses." Patricia approached, smiling. "How was your day at the office?" "We need to talk," he said, his voice more serious than usual. She immediately sensed the change in tone. "Did something happen?" "Sophia, how about you go play inside with Grandma Carol? The adults need to talk." "About boring work?" the girl asked, making a face. "About work," Vincent confirmed, laughing despite the tension. After Sophia went inside the house, Patricia sat next to Vincent on the garden bench. "You can talk. I'm ready for anything." "I don't know if you are." Vincent told her about the award, about the German company's proposal, about the opportunity to work in Europe. As he spoke, he saw Patricia's eyes light up with a mix of disbelief and emotion. $15 million, she whispered, and international recognition. "Patricia, this is what you've always dreamed of. It's your chance to be recognized as the brilliant architect that you are." She remained silent for a long time, looking at the roses she tended to every day. And what about Sophia? She would have to leave school, her friends, everything she knows. Kids adapt, and she's smart enough to learn German quickly. And you? The question he had feared. I would stay here taking care of business. 2 years away from you. Patricia, you can't let this opportunity pass because of me. She turned to look him directly in the eye. And who said it's just because of you? Vincent, for the first time in my life, Sophia and I have a real family. We have stability, love, security. Why would I give that up? Because it's your dream. It was my dream. Now my dreams include other people. Patricia. No, Vincent, you don't understand. For years, I fought alone to give the best for Sophia. Now that we've finally found our home, our family, you want me to throw it all away for money and recognition. It's not just money. It's your career, your professional future. My future is here, with you, with Sophia, with the family we've built together." At that moment, Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, clearly having overheard part of the conversation. "Mom, are you leaving?" Patricia opened her arms and Sophia ran to her. "No, my love, I'm not leaving." "But what about the important job? I heard Uncle Vincent talking about Germany." "Some opportunities are important, Sophia, but they're not more important than family." Sophia released her mother's embrace and looked at Vincent. "Uncle, do you want us to leave?" The child's direct question hit him like a punch. "No, Sophia, I want you to stay, but sometimes we need to let the people we love follow their dreams." "But if you love us and we love you too, why does someone have to leave?" Vincent knelt down to the girl's height, gently touching her face. "Because Uncle wants your mom to be recognized by the whole world as the amazing architect she is. And what if I don't want the whole world to recognize her? What if I just want her to be my mom and my what, Sophia?" The girl looked at her mother, then at him, with that precocious wisdom that sometimes startled adults. "Your girlfriend," she finally said. "Because you like each other the way boyfriends and girlfriends do, but pretend you don't." Patricia turned red. "Sophia, it's true, Mom. You look at each other with that silly face. You look prettier when he comes home, and he buys flowers for you every week, saying it's to brighten up the house." Vincent couldn't help but smile. "And does that bother you, Sophia?" "Bother? No, I like it. It means we finally have a complete family." She paused. "So why do you want to break up our family because of a job?" Vincent and Patricia exchanged glances, both realizing that a 7-year-old had hit the nail on the head with devastating simplicity. "Sophia is right," Patricia finally said. "We're not going to accept the offer." "Patricia, you'll regret it." "No, Vincent. The only regret I would have is giving up the happiness I have here for a promise of happiness somewhere else." At that moment, Grandma Carol appeared at the back door. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone at the front door wanting to speak with you. He said she's from the press." The three adults looked at each other, confused. "Press?" "She said it's about the architecture award. It seems the story leaked, and they want to do a piece on the architect who triumphed against all odds." Vincent sighed. "From now on, our private life is going to be news." "One more reason not to go to Germany," Patricia said pragmatically. "At least here we can deal with the Brazilian press." Sophia clapped her hands. "Is Mom going to be on TV?" "It seems so, my love." "That's cool. Can I tell my friends at school that my mom is famous?" As they walked toward the house to meet the journalist, Vincent realized that Patricia had made her decision with a conviction he couldn't and shouldn't question. She had chosen love over fame, family over career, certainty over adventure. And for the first time in months, Vincent allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could really have their happy ending. But there was still one last storm waiting for them on the horizon. The article about Patricia came out on a Thursday in Architecture and Construction magazine, with a photo of her, and Sophia on the cover, under the title, "The Architect Who Rose Again, From Housework to International Recognition." The article chronicled her struggle, the reconnection with her profession, and the award won with the Hope Garden project. That morning, as Patricia read the report at the breakfast table, her phone wouldn't stop ringing. There were journalists, college friends she had lost touch with years ago, and even job offers from other architecture firms. "Mum, you're really famous!" exclaimed Sophia, flipping through the magazine and pointing at the photos. "Look, there's even a picture of our house." Vincent watched the excitement with a mix of pride and concern. Fame would bring opportunities, but also exposure, and enemies like Beth would know exactly how to use that against them. As if his thoughts had materialized the threat, The mansion's doorman called to inform him that a lawyer wanted to speak with Mr. Vincent. Minutes later, an elegant woman in her 50s, wearing a pristine grey suit and carrying a leather briefcase, was escorted to the library by Grandma Carol. "Mr. Walker, my name is Dr. Marina Johnson, and I represent the interests of Ms. Beth Walker," she said, her voice firm and professional. "I need to speak with you about a matter." Delicate. Vincent, who was reviewing contracts, did not lift his eyes from the papers. "If my sister has something to tell me, she can come in person." "I'm afraid it's not that simple." The lawyer sat down uninvited and opened her briefcase. "My client instructed me to inform you about certain discoveries she made recently." "What kind of discoveries?" "Discoveries about Mrs. Patricia Smith and her daughter." Now Vincent paid attention, closing the contracts and staring at the woman. "I'm listening." "My client hired a deeper investigation into Mrs. Smith's past and found some concerning irregularities." "Like what?" The lawyer pulled out photographs and documents from her briefcase. "These are photos of Mrs. Smith from 5 years ago, when she was still married." Vincent examined the photos. They showed Patricia younger, smiling next to a dark-haired man, apparently at some social event. "And?" "The man in the photo is Richard Miller, a civil engineer, as Mrs. Smith had told. What she didn't mention is that he didn't disappear, as she claims." "Go on." "Richard Miller was killed 4 years ago, shot in the head, execution-style, organized crime. The case was never solved." Vincent felt his blood run cold. "And what's the implication?" "The implication, Mr. Walker, is that your client lied about the circumstances of her husband's disappearance, and there is a possibility that she knows more about his death than she admits." "That's absurd. Patricia wouldn't be capable." "There's more." The lawyer placed other documents on the table. "Richard Miller was involved in money laundering through overpriced public works. He had connections with known figures in organized crime." "What does that have to do with Patricia?" "She was married to him, lived in the same home, benefited from his dirty money. It's impossible she didn't know." Vincent stood up, walking to the window. Outside, Sophia was playing in the garden with a doll, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside the house. "Even if this is true, it doesn't prove she did anything wrong." "Doesn't prove, but raises serious questions." The lawyer leaned forward. "Mr. Walker, a woman whose husband was involved with organized crime, who lies about the circumstances of his death, who appears in your life in a situation that's too convenient, don't you find that at least suspicious?" Before Vincent could respond, the library door opened and Patricia entered, carrying a tray with coffee. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, stopping abruptly upon seeing the stranger. "I didn't know we had company." "Patricia, this is Dr. Marina, Beth's lawyer." Patricia's face hardened instantly. "And what does she want?" The lawyer stood up, observing Patricia with interest. "Mrs. Smith, I would like to ask you some questions about your late husband, Richard Miller." Patricia almost dropped the tray. Her hands visibly trembled, and she had to lean on the table. How do you know that name?" "So you didn't even know her husband's real name?" the lawyer asked Vincent. "Interesting." "Patricia," Vincent said calmly, "sit here. Let's talk about this calmly." "There's nothing to talk about," she replied, but her voice trembled. "My husband is dead. That's all that matters." "How did he die?" the lawyer insisted. "You told Mr. Walker that he disappeared, but police records show that Richard Miller was found dead with a gunshot wound to the head 4 years ago." Patricia slowly sat down, as if her legs could no longer support her. Tears began to roll down her face. "Patricia," Vincent said gently, "tell me the truth." I couldn't." "Tell," she whispered. "You wouldn't understand." "Understand what?" Patricia took a deep breath, wiping her tears. Richard wasn't the person I thought he was when I married him. At first he seemed like a normal, hard-working, honest engineer. But after Sophia was born, I started noticing strange things. What kind of things? Too much money for his salary, meetings at odd hours, phones he answered in another room, and he started drinking, becoming violent. The lawyer was taking notes. Go on. One day I found documents in his drawer, contracts for public works with absurdly high values, names of politicians, businessmen. I realized he was involved in corruption. And what did you do? I confronted him. It was the worst decision of my life. Patricia unconsciously touched a small scar on her arm that Vincent had never noticed before. He hit me, said that if I told anyone, he would kill me and Sophia. But you didn't report him? Vincent asked. How could I? I was his wife. I used his money. Who would believe that I didn't know anything? So you stayed silent. For 2 years. 2 years living in fear, pretending to be a normal wife while knowing my husband was stealing public money until what? Until he decided to get out of the scheme. He said he wanted to change his life, that he had saved enough money. But the people he worked with didn't like the idea. The lawyer leaned forward. And then? Then they killed him. In front of us. In front of Sophia. The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. Patricia, he murmured. Sophia was 3 years old. She saw everything. Men came into our home, argued with Richard, and then they shot him. Patricia began to sob. Their leader looked at me and said, if you open your mouth to anyone, you two will end up just like him. That's why you lied about him disappearing. That's why I changed my identity. I left that city, came to Los Angeles, invented a new story. Richard Miller died, and with him Patricia Miller also died. I became Patricia Smith, a single mother who was abandoned by her husband. The lawyer closed her briefcase with satisfaction. So you lied about your identity, about your past, about your husband's death? I lied to protect my daughter, Patricia exploded, to give her a chance to have a normal life far from this violence. Mr. Walker, said the lawyer, do you realize that you brought a woman with connections to organized crime into your home, who systematically lied about her past? Vincent looked at Patricia, who was silently crying, then at the lawyer, who smiled with satisfaction. Outside, Sophia continued playing, oblivious to the fact that her world was crumbling again. Dr. Marina, he finally said, you can tell Beth that she didn't get what she wanted. What do you mean? She wanted to make me suspicious of Patricia, make me kick her out of the house. And isn't that what's going to happen? Vincent approached Patricia and held her hands. No, because now I understand why she is so brave, so strong, so determined to protect Sophia. She survived something that would destroy most people. Mr. Walker, you are being naive. Doctor, you can leave my house. And you can tell Beth that if she continues to pursue my family, I will use all my resources to ruin her life. Legally. After the lawyer left, Vincent sat next to Patricia, who was still crying. Why, didn't you tell me before? Because I was afraid you would judge me, that you would think I was complicit with Richard. Patricia, look at me. She lifted her tear-stained eyes. You are not responsible for your husband's crimes. You are a brave woman who protected her daughter in the only way she knew how. But now you know the truth. You know I'm a liar. You are not a liar. You are a survivor. At that moment, Sophia burst into the library, stopping when she saw her mother crying. Mom, why are you crying? Did that woman do something bad? Patricia opened her arms and Sophia ran to her. No, my love. Mommy was just remembering sad things from the past. About Dad, Patricia tensed. Sophia rarely talked about her father. Do you remember Dad, Sophia? The girl nodded gravely. I remember him shouting, and bad men making loud noises, and blood on the floor. Vincent and Patricia exchanged glances, realizing that the child had carried this trauma alone all these years. "Sophia," Vincent said gently, "you know that will never happen to you again, right?" "I know, because now we have you to protect us, and because Mommy is strong." "Very strong," he agreed, looking at Patricia with renewed admiration. That night, after Sophia went to bed, Vincent and Patricia sat in the garden under the cherry tree, where so many important conversations had taken place. "And now?" she asked. "Now that you know everything about me?" "Now," he said, taking her hand, "I want to ask you a question I should have asked a long time ago." "What question?" Vincent knelt on the grass, pulling out a small box from his pocket. "Patricia Smith, will you marry me? Not for convenience, not for gratitude, but because I love you. I love you. I love Sophia. I love the family we have built together." Patricia was speechless, looking at the simple yet elegant ring that sparkled in the box. "Vincent, are you sure? After everything you learned today?" "Especially after what I learned today, because I discovered that I fell in love with an even more incredible woman than I imagined." "And Sophia?" "Sophia already considers me family, and I want to make that official." Patricia looked at the house where they had found peace, at the garden where Sophia played every day, at the man who had given them not just shelter, but true love. "Yes," she whispered, "yes, I accept." When they kissed under the cherry tree, illuminated by the stars of Los Angeles, they both knew they had found something rare and precious. A family built not by blood or convenience, but by choice, courage, and unconditional love. In Sophia's room, the girl smiled in the dark, having heard the entire conversation through the open window. Finally, she thought before falling asleep, they had a real, complete family. And outside, in the shadows of the garden, Grandma Carol watched the scene with tears of happiness, in her eyes whispering a prayer of gratitude for helping to unite those three souls who needed each other so much.